Hi, this is Jerry Kassar. I'm the chairman of the New York State Conservative Party. I'm very pleased to welcome you back to our Conservative Party's podcast entitled Patriots Podium. Our show brings newsmakers, conservative political leaders, political pundits, and conservative thinkers to you for an informational conversation on their work and the issues of the day. We are joined today by Marc, the General Counsel of American Freedom, an organization founded by former Vice President Mike Pence that is committed to promoting and defending conservative philosophy and traditional values to continue the United States' role as the leader among world nations. Marc has served in senior legislative and policy positions in the House and State Department and in several important private sector roles, including the Director of Tax and Budget Policy at Citizens for a Sound Economy. The bottom line is a highly regarded public activist, and we are very fortunate to have him speaking with us today. Thank you, Marc, for joining the show. Do you have, and welcome.
Jerry, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, let's get right to it. Although this may be a bit of off the direction of the show, I want to just take a minute here. I'm aware that your family are historically significant going back to the Revolution. We're going to get right into the show, but could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and your families?
Well, thank you for that. You know, I gave a presentation at Faith and Law on Friday, which is a ministry to Christian House and Senate staff in the Capitol Hill. And it was on religious liberty. And one of the questions was, what books do you recommend? How do we learn more about this? And I said, well, a lot of the things that I included in this talk was based on my own family history. So I know about Swedish Lutherans who were colonists. I know about German Reformed people who were settled on the frontier of Virginia. I know about Quakers and how they moved continually south as states repealed their anti-Quaker laws. And so I think that, I feel really blessed by American history that I would never have learned. I was never taught this in high school or in college, but I learned it on my own because you're studying ordinary people. And I really think that that's a very important thing, that every one of us are stewards of our own story, and knowing things in detail about people who otherwise would never have entered history, it gives a great understanding of this American experiment that we've been blessed with.
Well, interestingly, and I will go right into the show. I suspect my wife's family and your family may have interacted back then. My wife's a Bowden. It's part of the family. Their family is buried in the churchyard at Williamsburg. And they were surveyors in Virginia at the time of the Washington family being land surveyors too. And she's not active with any of the colonial groups or revolutionary groups, but she's eligible for membership in Colonial Dames and DAR. She just hasn't chosen that route. But I agree with you completely. It's amazing when families trace back their histories and understand what their families are about and how it impacts on today's America. But let's get right into the show. Advancing American Freedom is very active on many fronts. In particular, you're willing to lead and or participate in various pieces of litigation. As Conservative Party State Chairman, I really appreciate that role, because when I was elected, I made that clear that the party needed to be involved a little bit more in litigation. You've given us the opportunity through amicus briefs, and we've done a little bit of our own litigation over the years. I'd like to explore some of the areas that you've been involved with. For example, parental rights. You have a number of statements and several legal actions protecting the rights of parents. Could you, against really overreaching government, academia, the private sector, and could you elaborate a little bit more on your role and work in parental rights issues?
Sure. When I first became general counsel 3 years ago, one of the first cases that came to our attention was brought by Parents Defending Education out in Iowa, and this was called the Lynn Mar case, based on a school district called Lynn Mar. And incredibly, we learned that there was a policy to help school children transition from one gender to the other. And if the child did not want the parents to know about it, no one in the school district who was helping this transition along would notify parents. And we thought, surely this has just got to be a one-off crazy case. But it was important enough for us to weigh in, because there are parental rights cases throughout American history at the Supreme Court level, and the role of parents in educating their children, and the importance of the role of parents in a family precede the United States Constitution. So we filed a friend of the court brief called Amicus Curiae, which identifies the kind of ruling that we would like to see, and why it's consistent with Supreme Court precedent and the precedent in the Eighth Circuit, where this case was. Incredibly, this case has been repeated all over the United States. There have been many, many school districts, hundreds, maybe thousands of school districts that have adopted these policies at some time during the last 10 years, and no one was aware of them. These were largely adopted without any public comment, and parents are just left in the lurch when they discover that their child is depressed, having ideas of self-harm, other kinds of issues, and they discover that what's behind a lot of this are these suggestions that they're receiving at school, that the reason you're unhappy is you're in the wrong body, you're being treated by the wrong gender, and that just compounds the problem. Many of these children we have found since our first foray, many of them are on the autism spectrum, and they just don't really understand social cues. They don't know why they have a hard time forming friendships. These are oftentimes lonely, frustrated children because they don't know why they don't fit in, and they're being given a reason that is completely false, and it does a lifetime of harm for these children who are told things like, "Well, you're in the wrong body."
And you've had success in this area. Will there be a point when the U.S. Supreme Court is able to just singularly codify this nationally? I mean, in so many ways, you're basically dealing with issues that go back to the founding of the country that have just somehow exploded out in 9,500 different directions. Do you feel that we're coming to a point where this could all come to a head?
Well, we do. I mean, we were very encouraged by a case called Mahmoud, which was brought by a Muslim family, but part of this network of families included Protestants, Jews, Catholics, Orthodox, and this was in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is suburban Washington, very, very liberal county, very, very diverse, which is why the number of parents protesting this filed a suit. What happened here is that the parents were notified that there was going to be a curriculum focusing on transgenderism, and they could opt out if they wanted to. Well, there were so many parents that indicated to the school that they would like to opt out for their children, that the school withdrew it and said, "Well, that's only if this is in the science area or in health. We're going to teach it in English, and there is no opt-out for English." just incredible, very high-handed. And so the parents sued, and the school district fought it all the way up to the Supreme Court. And even Elena Kagan, one of the liberal members of the Supreme Court, asked the school district, "Why are we here? Why did you fight and spend all of this money all the way up to our court for these parents? You're not going to allow these parents some form of grace to opt their children out." So when the most liberal justices of the Supreme Court have to ask these questions, I think that indicates that we're on the winning side on this. And so the Mahmoud case came down in favor of allowing parents to exempt their children based on religious freedom issues, which is a win. But what we had asked for is that it be decided on a parental rights idea, because there are a lot of people, particularly left of center, who don't want to make a religious freedom claim. They don't want to be on some kind of government list as being a religious objector. We just thought it was stronger and more grace-filled if parents could just say, "Look, I'm the mom, I'm the dad, I know my kid better than anyone else. This is not good for him or her, and we can take care of this as a family at home, and we don't expect it to be done."
Well, we've also
in a school
had
setting.
Right, yeah, and this, even though this is not to point on the mandate issue concerning students and the vaccines and all, I mean, it does go to this general argument that government overreaches. And the Trump administration obviously is not where this is these days, but the Trump administration will not be here forever, yet these legal precedents could be here for many, many years past. So this actually brings me into religious discrimination and the rights of life. You don't really see that many groups bringing up the religious discrimination arguments and the rights of life arguments that are not religious groups. You definitely hear the cases, but I found it somewhat unique that you were involved in this, and I believe we went amicus on this with you all. At least if we didn't, we should have. Could you talk a little bit more to religious discrimination and rights of life and some of the cases you've worked on in this area?
Yeah, ultimately, our liberties come from religious liberty, because if you can't reach on the inside of someone's head about religious beliefs that they have and a relationship that they have with God, then that means you can't get at them for questions of speech or writing or demonstrations or petitioning government. And ultimately, I have worked since I was a really young man on helping overturn Roe v. Wade so that the abortion question could go back to the states it's a mediating measure. I mean, ultimately, most of us do not want to see abortion legal at all because it takes the human life, and look what it does to harm our souls. And in looking at some of the responses after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is that there are a lot of people who have so little regard for human life that they say really horrible things online and in the news about how cheap human life is to them. And I think that is part of the abortion culture. And so we as an organization have fought for that. And one of the things that we've filed 2 cases recently related to West Virginia and North Carolina state law that were passed after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and this is to protect women from the abortion pill mifepristone. Some people know it as RU486 from its chemical name, and When mifepristone was approved by the FDA, there were so many dangers associated with it that there were a lot of protocols that had to be followed in order to take this pill. One of which is you had to see an actual physician and have an ultrasound, because if the mother has an ectopic pregnancy, which is when the embryo attaches to the fallopian tube, taking mifepristone could cause the mother to bleed out and die. And so you wanted to make sure that you knew the age of the unborn child, and that it was actually properly attached to the womb. Other things like that, just focusing on making sure that there are no adverse events. Those protections were stripped out initially by the Obama administration, and then completely eliminated under the Biden administration. And so West Virginia and North Carolina wanted to restore those protections. And of course, the Biden administration and Big Pharma opposed it. And so we stood up for the state voters in West Virginia and North Carolina, saying that is a state role to protect human life, whether it's the unborn child or it's the mother who's been given bad information.
Well, I would say this, and that's good, that we of course completely agree with you. When I look at a map of the country, to me it seems like you could pretty much take 1/3 of all the states and categorize them as thinking the way the Conservative Party does. Not New York State, frankly, where we operate, but thinking the way the party does. And I sincerely believe a good half of the nation, this comes out more on the side of general conservatism than not. But let me ask you, let me just continue moving this forward. So what's really now a lifetime ago, I was a national director of Young Americans for Freedom. It was really a lifetime ago, frankly. But, we had YAF chapters on campuses, and we may have even back then had one on the University of Buffalo campus, but we never had the problem that you've had to deal with. And this is the problem. You have a chapter there that's affiliated, and I don't think people always get the initial understanding, but Young Americans Foundation is the parent group of Young Americans for Freedom. When I was on the national board, we were kind of like equivalents, and Ron Robinson was actually on the board with me back all the ways back then. But the point here is that you ran into a situation, which is probably more prevalent than a lot of people realize, where a chapter of young people, and it wasn't Turning Point. Young Americans for Freedom is like Turning Point, but it's not Turning Point. But they were basically told that they could not have real interaction with their parent group, Young Americans Foundation, which is significant because Young Americans Foundation is the parent group that supplies and helps providing the outline and the speakers for these campus groups. You went out there and took the University of Buffalo to court. Tell us about that.
Well, this was another friend of the court brief that we filed against the student government at the University of Buffalo. And they told their student chapter of Young Americans for Freedom that they had to disassociate with the parent organization. And like you said, Young America's Foundation raises money all over the country to help provide a speakers bureau, good speakers who are good at engaging a student audience, to really make people think, and to champion ideas that are not often found on liberal campuses anymore. And incredibly, the whole issue was about the competition of ideas at a university, which is established by our culture to explore ideas and to teach the principles of freedom. And the Student Government Association objected to us filing a brief to inform the court of what we think the law is. It was just incredible. So you got to see close up how hard it is for conservatives to bring their point of view at a university level Um, and you have bureaucracies within the administration blocking one side of that debate. It's not a marketplace of ideas. It is just really one-sided, and you don't want to see universities fall into propaganda. So that's why we weighed in on this, and I thought it was particularly outrageous that they tried to prevent us from even filing an alternative viewpoint on an issue that cuts to alternative viewpoints.
Well, I know the vice president is on the, actually, he's part of the speakers group over at Young America's Foundation, may even be on one of the boards over there. So I took particular interest in this. We've had problems, in Syracuse, with Syracuse University. Actually, we have a lot of problems in New York State with the university culture. So I'm glad you intervened here, and I hope you're able to intervene whenever these problems arise. I know as a person who looks at America's youth as truly and clearly our future, this sort of stuff has to stop. Let's talk a little bit about the right to bear arms, NRA versus VULO. My understanding is you were not directly involved, but like the Conservative Party, you had a lot to say on this, and I want to just air out a little bit on. It's very difficult for me to fully understand where the whole world of Second Amendment is. I'm a lifetime NRA member since I've been 21, so I guess that's a lifetime.
I am too.
Right, and you know what? I live in New York. I don't get to shoot, but I do look at NRA as being a lot more than guns. No, but I totally have no issue with that. But it's a lot more. It's a group that really loves freedom and independence and responsibility. Talk to me a little bit about the organization's role on NRA Second Amendment issues and your own view in terms of litigation.
Well, we filed a friend of the court brief in this case, and if you look at the NRA membership, the overwhelming number of them members are gun owners, but I've got to believe that there are a lot of people who the reason they join is because the National Rifle Association stands up for what the Constitution actually says. Yes. And that if the left tries to ignore or make up what the Second Amendment actually says, then it's not just our Second Amendment rights that are in peril, it's our First Amendment rights. Because if you can't just ignore what the text says. If you don't like it, you have to amend it, and you have to go through the hard process of amending the Constitution. So what happened here is the intolerant left, unable or unwilling to meet the demands of free and open debate, what they did against the National Rifle Association is they state bureaucrats in New York State went to the banks and the insurance companies of the NRA and implied that these are it's an illegitimate organization that will damage your reputation and should not be doing business with. And an organization that stands up for civil liberties and not have access to the banking or insurance industry. The intent was to put them out of business and to disenfranchise the voice of millions of Americans. And I think this is one of the most outrageous cases that we've been involved with, because it demonstrates that even people within state government have open contempt for what the Constitution says about the rights of their fellow citizens to be able to petition government of their grievances and to be able to speak freely in a public space about their ideas and will challenge the ideas of others. So we're really at a difficult time in our country where there are less and less tolerance for alternative viewpoints, and that the probably the lowest points of a view of tolerance are on university campuses, which is the exact opposite of what university campuses ought to be.
No, it's so true, so true. By the way, my impression is that U.S. Senator Keene from Virginia might not be one of your best friends after some of the statements he's made. So,
You know, he actually went after a witness at an open hearing for subscribing to this crazy idea that our rights are endowed by
that's where I was going.
among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, something that's in our birth certificate as a nation, I think is incredible to
Well,
attack.
Go on, sorry.
And would shock our founders.
There was a Catholic bishop who I thought tore him to pieces, but that was just the beginning of an onslaught, which was appropriate, and I hope he learned something from it, but I suspect he didn't. So let's get past, as the show we're coming towards an end here, but let us get past the litigation. The group, AAF, you do a lot of so many other things. Could you just talk to us a little bit about the other things and how people can get in contact, maybe go to a website, to donate, join? Talk to us a little bit more.
Yeah, the best thing, we put lots of resources out to equip activists and to inform Americans about their country and some of the challenges that we're facing. Our website is very easy to find, advancingamericanfreedom.com, and you can see a lot of things that we are doing in on the legal area. We have a thriving area in the policy zone. We are up on Capitol Hill, informing congressional staff about different issues that we want to bring to their attention, and we look forward to active questions and debates from the audience on Capitol Hill. We do conferences and events. Recently, one in North Carolina. We've got one coming up in Texas. We have events coming up in California. And people can just sign up and ask to be informed. And of course, we take no government money, and we have over 200,000 members, I think, at this point. And we're entirely dependent on the gifts that people provide us to do what our title is. We advance American freedom. We're not a static organization.
We have found you immeasurable in terms of creating an ability for us to express ourselves as a state political party on national issues in a productive manner. It's very hard for me to fully express how important you all have been to us. Now, would you have any final words for our audience?
I just think that that the New York State Conservative Party is an important way for people to channel their views. It's a good check on other institutions. I mean, just like Advancing American Freedom, we try to bring the full spectrum of conservatism, all the way from libertarians all the way to traditionalist conservatives, and we're helping facilitate communication across that full spectrum, and we give them a common vocabulary, and we really focus in on what the Constitution says and what our constitutional rights are, because we all live our lives in different ways. But I think it's really important that we safeguard something that has kept America moving forward and reflecting human dignity for almost 250 years. And as we've seen recently with violence on campus, assassination attempts on President Trump, somehow we have lost the thread on what it means to be free and how to live free in a republic. And we need to get that back. We need to identify what those problems are so that we can fix them. And, Jerry, I just really am thankful for you and being on about a dozen of our amicus briefs, and for allowing me to have this time to share our views
Well,
with your members.
I think it's eye-opening, the conversation. A lot of us have the right view in our hearts, but we don't necessarily have an opportunity always to express them. And I certainly don't think hitting like on social media expresses anything. So it's good to have a conversation and to be talking about broader actions. So I really would like to thank my party people that have helped put this together. We have Katie Mohin as our producer, my assistant Eileen Johnson, our operations director Andrew Davis help us put these together pretty regularly. And I ask our audience, if you enjoyed this podcast, which is one of a number we now have in our library, go to our website, cpnys.org, or our YouTube channel, and tell people about these podcasts as well as what the work of the Conservative Party is. To the audience, just 2 weeks ago, we revised our national affairs platform. We updated it from 2022, and we discovered that 75% of what we've been pushing for have either now become operative through executive orders or new statutes. Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. That's what this Congress and this administration, which is a continuation of the first Trump administration, have been able to do for us. So once again, you've been watching our podcast. I'm Jerry Kassar. I'm the state chairman, and I want to thank you all for tuning in.